Hello, we're here with the New Life series. Thank you for joining us, the New Life series with Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello, Dr. Laitman. Hello, Nitza Mazuz. Hello. And here we're dealing with communication, how we communicate with one another, the entire world, and how we take the lives of all of our lives to a newer, better place. And that's why it's called New Life. This field of communication is fascinating. We've had a few discussions. We will continue doing more. You're welcome to join us, and we hope it will be interesting for you, at least as much as it is for us. The point of our discussion today, we want to focus on communication and language to the point of speech. In the previous discussion, you explained that in this field called communication, there's many types of languages that we communicate with one another, movement, song, dance. But what really makes humans special is the ability to speak, verbal speech. And when you explain this, I had a thought, or a question even, why speech? What's the point of developing speech in a person? Because the speech developed a part, our cognitive, intelligent part, to translate things in our mind. And at the same time, it actually disconnected us from our senses. We succeed in talking and understanding in our minds, but we feel less, we feel others less, we feel nature left. We actually lost our senses that we had before. That was our point of communication in the past. And then we have a real conflict, and that's what I'd like to focus on today. I don't think it's a conflict because of course, we developed by distancing ourselves from nature, from the animal level to the human level. But at the human level, the speaking level, of course, we lose our connection to nature that we had previously. And there's something and its opposite here. Because altogether, the development of man is through the force that is opposite to nature. That the man's nature is evil to begin with. And that's why he wants to harm the other and feels in that it makes him superior. He feels a prophet. And that is what leads him to develop onward at the speaking level. And then we need to understand that this communication, even though it's developing through dozens and thousands of years in our speech and all other manners, it's communication, not as an addition to the still flora and animal levels, but rather communication that developed, that was born and developed from our bad desire. This egoistic form, throughout many years, is now bringing us to the beginning of the recognition that this communication is not correct. That in that we're not developing communication between us, but rather that communication is ruined. Not for us to get closer to nature and truly connect between us, but rather all this language between people is how to, in a one-sided manner, take advantage of everything, and each person for his own good. And this brings us, at the end of the day, to a communication crisis that we need to recognize now, that without changing the media, without switching from egoistic communication to feeling as one, that we're connected, we will not be able to survive onward. If we're talking about the process that nature is going through in its development through still flora and animal levels, the person developing, we don't need to see his development as a continuation after those levels, because the continuation is negative and not positive. Only to recognize the bad in our nature and correct it. And over the bad communication, the ruined communication that brings us dangers and threatens our survival, we have to reach the understanding that we must, despite it and above it, make the correct communication. Why am I giving this introduction? Because to not see that we're continuing evolution, we are developing against nature. Nature is entirely here to connect all the various parts more and more. And therefore, in accordance with the desire that's developing, the material that's developing, at the still level, it's a small desire. The floral level, it's a bigger desire, and there's connection between them, mutual. We see that we discover nature, how all the plants are connected. They're all in one network. That the animal kingdom is also in a single system, like one big zoo, that each one complements the other and helps the other. And it's only the speaking level. As humans, we develop not to complement and help the other, but just the opposite, to take advantage of others and to each person only look after himself. And therefore, the entire continuation of the connection in humans is opposite to nature. It's negative. And we're not advancing in that. Our advancement is in recognizing the evil at the end of the day, in that our nature is obligating us to have negative communication. And when we reach today this recognition, then this recognition at the end of the day will bring us to correction. Therefore, we're at the beginning of a period of correcting the communication between us. But between this and that, we've developed in this egoistic communication, and it's interesting to see in what ways we connect. Of course, language, speech, that is connected to video and writing. At the end of the day, they're continuing the same process, the same inclination to take advantage of others for the sake of myself. That's what I want from communication. That's what I want from turning to the world. And in accordance with that, language developed, a dictionary, the words, writing, which is very, very points out to us and explains the inner nature of all these groups of people that use this or that language. We see how the difference in writing or language, we see the inner nature in groups of people, how much French and English, Spanish, Russian, Japanese, how different these languages are, and how different these people are in accordance with that. Despite there being in each language the same trend, how I connect to others to take advantage of them for my good. to what extent people are distancing themselves from nature, then they are more and more, they require communication, and that's how language developed, even at home. How much do we need to talk at home? If we understand one another, we live a long time together, we understand what each one wants, what he's used to. But the extent that we're distant from each other, then we need a richer language, a faker language, more artificial, that helps us to be in a mutual connection without each person not touching the other. In other words, the development of speech came to help us be in touch in the egoistic communication, to the extent that we'll profit from each other more. And then we understand that we won't be able to exist. Between these two trends, there's language. Therefore, it all comes in a manner that a person takes out the language, the melodies, the words, the understanding of these melodies, just like animals do naturally, that everyone understands why he makes such a sound. We too, at the end of the day, in the connection between us, we reach an understanding in accordance with nature. Each and every group, each and every nation, then the language changes. A modern French person cannot understand a French person that lived 500 or 1,000 years ago. They won't understand one another. Maybe in writing slightly more, and in speech less, because speech goes through much more changes. We use it a lot more. Even the way people spoke 100 years ago, we understand that it's old-fashioned. That's how they spoke in various periods. Even though we understand them, but it's not the same words and type of communication that can answer my needs today. In writing, we also see the changes are more gradual. We also see that the changes in a person reflect on the changes in our writing. From the invention of the artificial communication, phones, radio, etc., TV, in our time, this virtual connection, then our language changes, of course. There's much research, how people connect, how they talk. All these little faces, the smileys, all kinds of shortcuts, symbols. It's a language. It's a completely other language. We see to what extent there's still big differences between us. Let's say Hollywood or all these superpowers of communication, they smoothen out the differences between us. But still language, even though English is the language of the world, apparently still there's problems. We're attracted to one language and one communication. We try to reach all kinds of solutions so that one will understand the other through various translations, and we hope that there will be some automatic machine that will automatically translate a person to another person. But in the meantime, language really differentiates between us, and it mainly comes from the internal language in us. that each person wants for his own good. And therefore, even if we understand each other, and truly all of us speaking English around the world, we won't understand one another. Because the understanding is external. Let's say business-like only. And we more and more understand that it's business-like, and the distance between us, even in the family, then there's a need for connecting. It's more external. And therefore, we see that we become more and more factual in communicating, because we're not required this internal connection between us. We're not required to connect in a more heartful manner, but rather just, business as usual. Everything is bringing us to a situation where we feel lacking and that we can't survive in this manner, we can't exist. And we're reaching a crisis that will obligate us to correct this. But the correction is in us speaking from heart to heart and not from mouth to ear. That is actually the trend. The Bible tells us that it comes from Babylon, that there are egoistic desire brought each person and each nation. There were groups there inside Babylon. And then each group developed from nature its own egoistic desire that is different than others. And then they stopped understanding one another, first of all internally, and in accordance, the languages developed because they dispersed throughout the world, as it is written in a number of places, a number of sources. And that's how language developed. From one language, actually, from one foundation, they came and changed that single language, each one according to his nature, that became distant. So each one developed their own language. And also with some writing, they used it to discuss between each other and write between each other, and that's how communication in various writings developed. I want to ask here, let's try to differentiate between two situations, and then we'll try to learn something. Let's say Nitsa and I are speaking the same language. We both speak Hebrew. There's a situation where I say certain words, and she understands them in a different manner than I intended. She understands the language, but she's understanding what I said with a different intention. That's one situation. This is how it is between everyone. Another situation is that you and I do not speak the same language. The disconnection between you and I, that we don't speak the same language, is clear and understood. You speak your language, I speak my language, and there's no common language between us. Between us, if we speak the same language, there's a disconnect at a different level. If our discussion today is speech, in these two situations, there's speech or lack of connection or lack of understanding what's being said, or a different language, how do you, in this analysis that you're saying that speech, that the corrected speech is from heart to heart and not from mouth to ear, and look at these two situations, how can we understand where we're headed? It's very simple. On the one hand, we're attracted to one external language, say English. On the other hand, in that we'll understand that we're not connecting with one another in the manner that we should. we will get a deficiency from it. Not in one single external language, we will be able to reach the required connection, that we're in a lack of connection between us in a much deeper manner. Language is actually an external vessel to convey to one another the developments of the heart and the emotions and the desire of a person. The desire is the whole essence of a person, what I want at each moment of existence in my life. And this I want to implement and realize and express, to connect with others to realize it. I want to realize my desire altogether. That's how it works in the still flora and animal and human level. Because I always have renewing deficiencies, I have to always be in touch with others. Now, actually, if we could connect with one another with that language, even better. But we're not capable. We don't understand one another. Also, still, flora and animal, they use external languages to the extent that they need to complete each other. They complete each other with these external signals. But even though we have external signals, we don't complete each other, even though all our connection is through language. And we are always discovering how much it doesn't cover, doesn't complete this lack of connection, communication between us. Why? Because our ego is developing and not allowing us to be connected. I see to what extent there's phones, screens, all kinds of types of communication. I see people are becoming more distant from one another. They cheat each other more, take advantage of each other more. They're mixing each other up. Development at the end of the day brings us to the understanding that that crisis that we went through in Babylon, that instead of connecting between us, we became distant from one another. We didn't correct our ego to be as one nation and one language. But rather, we would prefer to be distant from one another. And where's this process going today? Toward the recognition of evil. To one nation and one language. What language is that? This language will be an inner spiritual language, the language of the heart that we will discover, that we will agree to. It won't be English. I don't want to point out to a certain language. I want to point to the form, the nature of the connection, the signs that each one developed, and the sounds that each one developed. They developed from their ego, each and every nation. And the language that was accepted in Babylon is simply Aramaic in Hebrew. And based on our research, it is the language that is suitable for the complete connection between people, because it matches in the external signs and it sounds to the same forces that operate within one desire to another desire in order to connect between them and not to divide between them. If I want to truly connect from my desire to your desire without some modem, English and all kinds of other languages, or in signs or sounds, not a modem, but as one heart, one desire, then in that I have only signs that are alphabet and Hebrew. It's the same signs. This connection you call without a modem, it means that we are unifying our desires. You said the language of the heart. Yes, the language of the heart. What do you talk about in that language? You talk about how to connect in one heart, in the unity of desires or hearts. If we would remain in Babylon despite our ego to connect between us, then we would all speak in one language, a higher language, because our heart would have developed. And we would be above the ego, we would develop communication. And then we would discover in those words, in those symbols of writing, we would discover much depth. We would discover height. Great spaces filled with emotion. We would discover the internalness of nature. Why do we need words in the language of the heart? External ones? Why do we need to talk in the language of the heart? Can I just feel you without talking? Yes, but that's in the future. I'm saying that in the meantime, we need, for the period of correction, we need some type of external language, but this language will push us to have a connection between us, to connect our hearts. The other languages separate us, and they try to connect us in how to take advantage of one another. This language is built on the connection between humans. Hebrew. It's built on the connection. And that is why all the books were written in that period, and why it is called the holy language, because the bestowal, mutual bestowal. And that's why even in exile, they were not allowed to use it and speak in that language, only for studying those states where we connect between us. And in the rest of the time, they either connected in Arabic or in Spanish, Yiddish, French, all kinds of foreign languages, which suits our life in exile, where we're not in the correct connection between us. When we need to connect in the correct connection, why when we came to Israel, we had to build the correct connection between us, we went back to Hebrew, which is the language that brings us to a connection between us, which actually must be the trend, why we need to be here and what we need to do here. It reminds me of that expression, one in the mind and one in the heart. This expression represents that I can say whatever I want when I'm talking, but my heart can be in another place. And based on what you explained, I started to understand that this speech that we had up till now developed our brain and everything, but our heart stayed out of the game somehow. The language of the heart will begin to develop our heart again and our ability to connect internally until we learn until we lose language altogether and will feel one another in an open manner without any external signs. That's correct. Now, actually, it turns out that we need to develop our internal connection, our heartful connection, and to still use the speech, because that's what we have. until we reach a stage where we won't need to express each other. At the moment, the greatest question is, how do we use the speech to begin to develop the language of the heart? First, we have to learn Hebrew. Who's us? Everyone? Anyone who wants to. Anyone who wants to be connected from heart to heart. We have to switch to Hebrew, and we need to learn how we suit our words, signs, sounds, to the inclinations of connection between us, the mutual connections in the mutual influence, good influence to one another above the ego. If we take the books that are written by the people that understand this language, that understand how to connect in this manner from heart to heart, then we will discover there that all these books are talking about the connection between one person and another person, between humans, in a manner of greater and greater bestowal, more and more open until everyone reaches one connection. At the end of the day, that's what we need. And therefore, science, the science about this is the most necessary science that we need right now. And we hope that it will become discovered, revealed in our time to everyone, because we need to learn the correct connection between us. There's another issue that's not in the line that we spoke of up till now that I'd still like to bring up about speech. In order to refresh the talk, I'm going to tell you a joke I heard yesterday from one of my kids. One guy had a very special parrot that if you pull one leg, he speaks Hebrew, the other leg, he speaks English. So he comes to the salesman, he says, if you pull this leg, he talks Hebrew, this leg, he speaks English. So the guy says, what happens if I pull both legs? So he says, of course, he's going to fall. What did I want to say? Parrot lives, learns and says words. It's a living puppet that speaks and even understands when to say something through training. He acquires abilities, let's say. Now, like I said before, let's say Nitsa and I are talking. There's like a short circuit between us. We're talking and we're not understanding one another. It's like we're not talking the same language. The parrot, me, and Nitsa, we can say a certain word. But you defined previously, you said language is an external tool to define what I want. The speech, the tool that a person has, you defined it as a means to express what I want, what I'm missing. A parrot talks, mumbles, and I'm mumbling, and Nitsa's mumbling. Where is... Let's say, if I'm talking and she doesn't understand me, what I want, and the parrot is saying and I don't understand the parrot, what is my advantage of a person over the animal? This is what I'm asking. If he's mumbling, and it's not, you said speech is like a means through which you carry this internal thing that you want to convey, and it's just the means for conveying this inner message to say what I'm missing. The parrot knows how to mumble, we know how to mumble, and nobody understands the other, let's say. So I want to go out of our discussion for a moment that we reached about Hebrew. Hebrew also looks to me like some kind of package. I want to reach what is the foundation for change in my ability to feel what the other person wanted to express that he's missing. To make a long story short, it took me a while. How do I develop the ability to identify in the word that she said or you said what I really wanted? You only took... You can't do that. But that's where you say we're headed. Yes, but we're headed toward it through the crisis, through the revolution, that I see that I'm capable of connecting. Let's say we're a couple. A good example. Words won't help. Nothing will help. Why? Because in my heart, I have my stuff and she has her stuff, and each one's screaming at the other, and no one hears each other. And even if you have a discussion, say you want to correct things, what do I do to advance? You need to find a connection, a verbal connection, to begin to open hearts and to begin to sync them so that they'll speak in one language. How? You need to find a language, but it won't help to speak to her Hebrew. I speak to her in Hebrew, and I don't understand her. No, I'm talking about another language, like we talk in computers that don't understand one another. You need to connect between them, to speak in one frequency, to understand each other's signs. And that they'll be developed correctly. What am I missing to read her signs properly and translate them? Read her heart. Read her heart like you read your heart. Otherwise, of course, how will you know what's in her heart? How will I start feeling her heart? Or any person, not just a couple, any in general. How do I feel somebody's heart? That's exactly it. You have two levels. You have the level of the heart, a person, what he wants, his aspirations, what he's missing. Then you have another level. I'm just saying the parrot. We have another level that's like a present, a package, the words. And it's like I conveyed it to you. And now we don't know how to open this package and verify what's inside. It's like humans got something extra. How do I develop this ability inside myself to open the package? What am I missing? You said I'm missing feeling another person's heart, like my own. And then I'll have a connection with her. If I inside, what does it mean, a modem? A modem means someone who synchronizes two systems. What is synchronizing two systems? That in one you have the other, and in the other you have the first one. The entire thing. Otherwise, I won't be synchronized.
Synchronization of the whole, it means that every system is included as a part of the other system, and then there's a connection between them, that inside myself I can build the form of the other which I connect with, and then through that form that I've built, I send him to his heart what I want to pass on, and he accepts it in his heart, what I passed on to him, and develops it, understands me, because inside him there's my heart too. If he won't have my heart, it won't help. That's called the language of the heart. That's the dynamics of it. Yes, that's called adhesion. This kind of a connection, that's called adhesion. The kind of connection. Okay, there are two directions here. It's a two-way street. So let's break it down into two parts. Suppose I want to talk to you the language of the heart. So you said, first of all, I have to build inside myself your form, your model, and through your form that's inside me, I turn to you, right? Yes, because I have a heart of my own nonetheless. Now, in order to understand you, I need to have your model inside me and to decode, to open up, to encipher the message, not in my heart, but in your form that's inside of me. But it's still not, it's not adhesion. It's a complete reciprocity through which we achieve a state where all of our hearts shall be interconnected. As one heart, one desire, we reach the image of a single person. Why do I not succeed in doing this today? You're talking to me. I'm trying to understand you. Yeah, but you don't want to become integrated in my desires and my heart. You don't want to accept them as my own, as your own. And in technology, we can build something like that. Want to be connected between everyone, mobile phones and different gadgets. Everything, for all of us to be interconnected. But what does it give? Only the ability to be externally connected. Okay, suppose me and my wife, she says something, I decipher it differently than what she said. I lose. Your wife isn't exactly... Okay, not my wife. Someone at work, any other person. Usually you produce between you some kind of a mutual desire. Me and my wife, your wife, the person at work, everyone. A mutual desire where you care for this mutual desire together. That's called family, or a city, or a nation. And then you create this mutual kind of desire that it's good for you to be in contact. It's good for you to make concessions in order to benefit, because you depend on each other. We all have to pay the municipality to clean our trash. Okay, so it's clear to us that we have your mutual desire. Everyone understands, everyone connects to it, everyone agrees. Have no choice. So we're not talking about that. No. But we're talking about the necessary thing. These are the necessary things that everyone understands. But every day, every moment, there are such states in which we have to be connected. Yeah, and we have short circuits in our connection, always. I want that, but what happens when there's a short circuit? I want to understand you, but you can't. Because our nature, for tens of thousands of years since we came down from the trees, our ego developed egoistically. We have developed egoistically, where no one understands the other, the desire of the heart. But why can't I understand you? I have a clear interest to understand you. Your nature and my nature doesn't allow us to skip over. That's what I'm asking. Why not? That's called the evil inclination. The inclination is a desire, but it's evil because I always look at the others. I'm not even aware of it. Not aware of it. I examine each and everything. How good or how bad is it for me? It's my own private personal interest, accordingly. And then correspondingly, I connect to that thing. Great. So to continue what you're saying, when you talk, or when someone talks to me, I have an interest to always benefit my state. You said something, I deciphered it incorrectly, and I brought harm upon myself. Why? You still don't feel that through the bad kind of connection with others, by not perceiving his heart, you're not aware that it is against you. You work differently. I have a possibility to use him. I do. You don't see the results. As a result of which you cause yourself harm, because it comes alternatively. You get it from the other side. Do you understand what I can't explain exactly. Why? If it's clear to me that it will be in my own benefit to understand what people say, in my own benefit, meaning egoistically speaking, yes, and that's why it doesn't work. Because you also decipher what comes to you egoistically. What do you mean? Okay, that's the point. Where's my mistake, in short? Your mistake is that you're incapable of grasping what they're saying objectively. That is that's independent of yourself. Why? You're built that way. It's your nature. You're not to blame. That's your nature. And you have to reach the recognition of evil, that if you don't understand the other from heart to heart, then you lose your life. And all of us are coming to that now in the beginning of the crisis. That's only the beginning of the recognition of evil. The recognition of evil and the connections between us. Last time you said that people developed a subjective kind of communication. Subjective, I'm trying to think how the negative donation of the verbal communication added to this communication between. There's every word has a definition that every person subjectively gave to that person. Were I not to benefit from each and every word that I bring out of my mouth, I couldn't have done it because that's my nature. I can't do something that's against nature, and my nature is only in favor of myself. Now I'm reaching the recognition that my nature is bad for me. It's not in my own favor, but it's against me. This is what I'm discovering now. And so I start hating my nature. And then I start searching how can I transcend it, build a connection above it. What I'm trying to understand is the verbal language, the talk itself. Did it have a part in the shackling us inside this mind? It developed inside it. Is it what caused us to? No. It's a result from the development of our own nature. Our nature, our egoistic nature that has developed, has propelled us to develop language, like in Babylon. For each and everything and all that we developed in our world, after we came down from the trees, we have developed adversely. Everything. Because, all in all, were we, theoretically speaking, as if, suppose, we'd connect heart to heart, we'd skip over the developing ego, the ego that's developing in us, and we could have always made a correction over it. The more it distances us, the more connected we would have been. Distances us more, we connect even more to always keep this one heart. Then we would have built out of ourselves, out of the speaking level, a single image, so to speak. Because we would have all felt and understood, we would have all 100% would have been reciprocal in life. Okay, one more thing that I'd like to ask. But I'd like nonetheless to. Why does it happen this way? Because then we would have stayed as ants. What? If we were to constantly keep our ego, that the more it develops, the more we connect to it. Connect to it. Without the recognition of evil. Instinctively, we would have, suppose, corrected it. That's how we reach a state where our ego develops to a state where we can't be tied to one another. We're disconnected from each other. Behind all the screens, the mobiles, the whatever, each is sure that he protects only himself. No one cares about anything, as it says. The people in your home are your enemies, that you really discover that the closest people are the ones who are ready to eat you alive first. To such an extent, we have developed into a state where our entire connection is completely negative, and each and everyone is ready to use the closest person. It's like they pay me money, I'll kill my child. They'll pay more, I won't only kill him, I'll eat him too. Really so. And it talks about that in the prophets, in the books of the prophet. And this extent of evil that we discover, we already understand that it's destroying us. I don't care about the others. Me, personally, it destroys me. I can't keep on going this way. Being the ego on the one side increases the importance of life. On the other hand, it brings me to a state where you have no life. Two opposite discernments. Two opposite discernments. And then I have to do something about it. Then I explode from this tension, from these two discernments, these two contradicting discernments in me, and then I find the solution. The solution is to return to the same task that was given to us by Abraham in Babylon. Either you develop in direction of an incorrect kind of communication, or the right kind of communication, which is mercy, chasadim, limitlessly, all of us as one man and one heart, all of us reciprocally connected in mutual guarantee, all of us, well, one heart, without any external language, anything external. This is what you have to come to. That's it. I don't, and of course, you can develop this. Okay, there's one more aspect I'd like to ask about. We talked a lot about talk between people, the talk of man with nature. You talked about the language of nature. Nature talks to me. I don't grasp it. There's one more thing, maybe the most intimate thing, which is one's conversation with himself. It's a lie, too. It is. Because I'm in my ego. I can't talk to myself any other way. I also lie to myself. Besides that I got from culture, from education, from everything that's in my environment, different false values. I include within me the evil of the entire world. I relate to myself too as an enemy. Why do I need a diet? Why do I need to look nice, pretty? Why do I have to burn myself out and work at work in order to get a nice car? I treat myself too as an enemy. Because I'm constantly taught how I should look. By this, I use my life in order to suck up to others. I'm lying to myself all the time. Because I don't know what is really in my favor. What are you lying to yourself in? Values. They tell me it's good for you, it's worthwhile living for this, and that. Instead of truly scrutinizing what's worthwhile living for, and for me to be cleaved on to that goal in life, which is the true, real, only one that will fill up my heart, my desires. Otherwise, a person dies and without achieving half of what he wanted. I don't live my own life. I live the life that someone plays, that this is how you should be, from dusk till dawn and dawn till dusk and so on. I'm everyone's slave. I'm lying to myself all the time. That even though that I am by myself, I have to keep the same values, the same laws that they have put into me. I never know who I am. I don't know myself. A person doesn't know himself. Education, life, culture, what we get from previous generations, from parents, from school, they build our false personality, which is not me. Who am I myself inside there? I don't know. None of my desires on the animalistic level, on the human level. On the animalistic level, yes. I want to eat, I have to go to the bathroom, and also here I was taught different things how to do and so on. But leave that aside. But on the human level, I have nothing of my own. Nothing. I have only one inner point that has to reveal, in which I will feel that really I was not even born. Yet. A piece of flesh with a program which was inflated by different bits of foreign information. Therefore, what kind of a contact does a person have with himself? Of course he doesn't. We are reaching the recognition of the crisis that, first of all, it's in us, with ourselves. I don't care about others. You see how many people are in despair, depression, drugs, different problems. Who's satisfied? Who's content with life? That's the beginning of the recognition of evil. Where's the self here? Where am I here? You see 1 billion fanatical people want to enslave the whole world under them. The other billion, through war, want to destroy the whole world. These, through money and industry, want to enslave the whole world. Each one, and you see what's going on. All of these different currents now that are coming to a collision, to a connection, there, finally, inside, we'll discover that the human point in us has not developed. Didn't. That there are many covers over it of society that, all in all, gives me this image of the evil person, and it's not me. Me? That could only be around that point, that spiritual drop. I have to connect around it. All the other hearts, if I'll succeed in revealing them clearly, in a clean way, without all the external shells by which they were inflated. That is the purpose of media in your eyes. Its purpose is the communications, is the different means of communication, is to connect between us, despite all of the evil inclination, which is envy, lust, honor, all these things. Despite all of these things, to connect only these points. This will be the connection between us, and that's the only way that we will be able to connect to each other. And the intensity of the connection between us, between the dots, is to the extent to which we have evil, which we have achieved throughout the generations in our development. Meaning the evil, eventually, helpmate against, will work to increase the communication, the connections. Okay, we're reaching the end, so let's sum up. Nitsa, can you sum up the part about speech? Okay, first of all, the biggest understanding is that our speech, which comes through the mouth, will shift to some kind of a more heartly kind of communication, for it to be through the heart and not through the mouth. And this is actually the thing that we're most lacking, because our language today, the way that we're communicating, it's very subjectively reached a state where it's not only that we don't understand the other, we don't understand ourselves, and we also don't know what is our truth. And the only way that will create the right and good kind of connection between us and will solve the tremendous conflict in which our humanity is, that it's called the crisis, is only through a heartly kind of connection, through a connection that's different, that we'll have to understand and scrutinize it and see how do we develop this language, because it is actually the most natural kind of language. But for us, It's new, it's unknown, it's seemingly unnatural and exists in each one of us. That's that inner truth that wants to connect with these other truths, but we still don't have the practice, the practical ability to create this language. Dr. Laitman, could you sum up speech and communications? Our communication is really the very process we're undergoing in our development. It has to bring us to the recognition of evil, and through the right kind of communication, we will come to the good. That's all there is to say about it. Languages will change. The writing, the everything will change in accordance with the new language that we will discover through the connection of hearts. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Laitman, Nitsa Mazoz. Thank you very much for being with us. Till next time, all the best.